For this conversation, we're going to be looking at moving images and moving borders. And for these, aside from Romain, with whose work I'm sure you're familiar with, Romain is a multidisciplinary artist. We also have Sébastien Gokalp, who's the director of the National History Museum of Immigration in Paris, and Sveva D'Antonio, who's not only has a gallery in Modica in the south of Italy that's called La Veronica, but is also part of a collection, CollezioneTaurisano. Francesco is also here. His father was the founder of the collection, and it's a collection that has a specific political and social imprint, and that's why we decided to also bring them in for this panel. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolina. Okay, thank you, Carolina, to invite us. Thank you for us to be here at lunchtime and to talk about borders. And I think it was a good idea to invite three different kind of people. One is an artist who's the base of our world, and the other one is Sveva, who's two things in the same time. She's collecting and she's running a gallery. And she has a very implicated gallery and implicated collection with many political issues. And I'm running since almost 1 year a museum who's kind of special in France called Immigration Museum, whose handle about history of immigration in French history. And so the borders is a very accurate question, a very actual question now, because everybody here there is two problems actually in the world. One is climate, and the other one is migrant and the crisis of migrant, or you can say crisis of hospitality in Mediterranean Sea, and even if you go to the United States with the world, or in many, many countries, there is more and more walls. And this question of borders and limits is very present in artworks, because first, maybe most of the artists are immigrants themselves. They are very, so they are self-concerned by this question. And even if it's not a self-question, many artists who are very aware of the contemporary world think, look, work on this question. So it was very interesting to have this 3 point of view. So we will speak together each 15 minutes, around 15 minutes. But of course, more live when you can ask questions and don't cut us every 2 minutes. But feel free to ask and to make an exchange. And after, we can have an exchange together with you like this. So I will just say that the theme of this round table is frontière. And frontier, as you see, is very old history. It's just a way of thinking, because in the geography there is no borders, but when you need to build walls to protect you from barbarians, and it starts from antiquity with this famous Hadrian's Wall, and it's still now, and there's more and more walls that are built every year in the world. And so we have two people who will come and talk. One is Romain Kronenberg, and I'm very happy to be with him because he has a very original career, as we say, because he first started he make theology studies, and after he works as a musician, and now he's as a contemporary artist, let's say. So he crossed many borders, and he will tell you this better than I do. But it's very interesting not to be just in one area, but to play with different way of creating and thinking. And the question of the border, or he will tell you maybe more on the limits, is very important for him. And so he will present this. And he's represented by Galerie Sator, who's a great galleries in Paris. So, so this is 2 seconds of publicity, advertising a moment. And our other talking person is Sveva D'Antonio, who's very, I'm very happy to be with you too, because you have two very specific way of working with art. You just tell me it's a seven day a week and 24 hours and 24 hours. And because I was asking you, are you more a gallerist or a collector? And at least you are both. And so you first start with this collection, Taurisano, but you decided to run a gallery. And it's the link between these two elements is, of course, art, but a kind of political way of seeing art and to think about content very accurately, maybe more than aesthetics. And you are living in Napoli, but your gallery is in Modica, who's in a small town in Sicilia. And you tell me we are very. It's very important to work on the territories where we are living. But we are. I ask you, your gallery is in a very small town. Who will come here? And you say, okay, of course, we are working with a worldwide artist, and this is a difference between to be somewhere to work with the place where you are and to have a wide eyes open. So, but you will tell it better than I do. So, thank you, and please, Romain, you can talk.
Hello. As Sébastien said, I first studied theology, and from there started a journey across fields. Because when I was studying theology, I got more and more interested in philosophy, and I started to read medieval philosophers, and among them one who is called Meister Eckhart, who has a very conceptual way to see theological subjects. And I was reading about him, and I wrote an article written by John Cage about Master Eckhart, because John Cage was very much interested with this philosopher, and I got into music by this way, and I started studying composition from there. And when I was studying composition, I started with really theoretical subjects, harmony, counterpoint, things like that. But then I started to study jazz music and then electroacoustic music. And from there, I started to work at IRCAM, which is some kind of a department of Centre Pompidou, where you create music for contemporary music. And there I started to collaborate with visual artists. And I had the chance, I didn't know who these people were at that point. It was 2002. I worked for Ugo Rondinone and I worked for Pierre Huyghe or Meliko Agnan. And I understood later that these people were quite important. But working with them, I got really, really much interested by visual arts. And I started working with visual. I started imagining a visual aspect to my music. And I will just, it works. I will just show you the very first performance I made with a visual aspect where 4 electric guitar players are playing at Fondation Cartier in Paris, and there is a display of lights in the garden, and there is a connection between the lights outside and the music inside. And then I started to make video, because that was really my purpose. I really wanted to work on that aspect. And little by little, first it was really contemplative, and then it started to tell stories, but without words. It was really sound-based stories. And then voice came, and stories came, and dialogues came. And then I started to imagine sculptures in dialogue with the videos. And what I'm trying to say, because the last thing I did is to write a novel, so I think what I'm trying to say is that I'm always trying in my own work to cross the limit of the discipline where I'm working. And this is the first aspect that I really wanted to develop here is in my own practice, the matter of the limit is really important, and crossing this limit is really a subject. That was really, it came to the point when my last project was a mix of sculptures, hosting video, with a novel, with photographs, and with performance. So it was the idea that the same one story would be discovered, would be shown by all of these disciplines. So this is the first aspect of the limit in my work. But then I started to introduce dialogues in my work, and dialogues were very soon focusing on people who imagine a world that doesn't exist, but they hope it exists, and they really try to cross the limit of the living world, of the inhabited world, and they really tried, yes, to go beyond that limit. And I started to imagine that kind of stories that, in a way, is connected to the very beginning of my journey, which is theology, because there is something which is not really theological or religious, and not philosophical either, because it's first, it's art, it's video, it's colors, it's shapes, it's movements. But then the fact that you try to cross a limit is connected to it. So maybe I can show an excerpt of a film. Yes. So it is a diptych made of two situations that I will talk about later.
Maslar üstü beş, hem göderiyle. Hem göderim var. Dengem değil de. Çay havale mi yok?
تشتاق بني أنا نفر تبالي بلا تذكر لي
Gelo, tepçi zani götü başı.
تشد ميني
On passe au prochain. Ok, d'accord.
So I will leave the picture, but I will talk. This diptych, which is called a fragile tension, it's made of two situations where you have a guy, a French-speaking guy, who is a scout. He went on a cargo ship in search for a land that he hopes exists, but he has no idea if it really does. And he's just waiting, he's just hoping. And on the other side, you have the situation where two people, two men, stay behind, talking on a radio with a scout who left in search for a new land. So the same situation concerns the two sides of the diptych, but they speak different languages, because the two guys there, Mehmet and Mazlum, they speak Kurdish, and the one on the left, he speaks French. And in fact, they live the same situation, they have the same hopes, but it's just, they don't come from the same culture, but it's the same universal question of the transcendence, in a way. How can we go beyond the limit of the known, let's say? How can we cross these limits? And this is really a strong aspect of my work. It's really both the desire to cross this limit and at the same time the knowledge that nothing is beyond. So there is something melancholic probably, and also maybe a bit pessimistic about it. But most of it there is life, because they all are really, really struggling with the hope. And there is this paradox in a way between them. They speak in the same radio because the two projects were shot almost at the same time. And then the last aspect for me about the limits is the real borders. I had the opportunity to work for a long time in a city called Mardin, and it's a city in the southeast of Turkey, which is a city where three languages are spoken, Arabic, Turkish and Kurdish. And it's a strange city where things are a bit in balance most of the time. And when I was working there for a long time in 2014, there was something political happened that was connected to some events in Kobane in Syria. And there was a huge tension in the city that was concerning both Turkish military people and Kurdish people, but also Arabic people. And I for the first time of my life, I had the feeling that I was taking part of history in a way, because as a French person, I never really had this feeling. It was always like there was no time, nothing really happening. The presidents were just going one after the others, elections, etc., but nothing really historical. And there I had this feeling that something historical happened. And I stayed there, where I was preparing a biennial that, because of the situation, was cancelled. But I decided to stay there just to leave this situation. And back home, I wrote about it, and I wrote a story that I proposed to my friends in Mardin to interpret. So the two men on the video there, they are among these friends, and this story was written for them. It's not their story. It's a place between us. It's my perception of their situation, and it's really poetical, but it's metaphorical, because I think in that area, being metaphorical is part of the solution when you want to express something, because it makes things less strict, less direct, and it blurs things a bit. And I will show you a short excerpt of it.
And you can see this movie here.
This is the one before that you can see here. They smoke a lot.
They smoke. Galwa.
لیدون ترومشی چاشی رو بدگی برای من چه دبکو بنتنی سدمک هم جبو بندابون اردلا اوجی رانزیکبونا راویا حیزی ده اردلان چون جاری نکاری بیر مثل مندارا و او کلی بوی چندی بلز بود ده پاشوختی نیزک در دی به سروبی آمولوی بمن قام اوی دستانا در ببن بانه اوی دان دا دن سترانده و به شوق و شغال افسانه نمی اوی ببن گوهره کتو قویدیا حیزی پیبن رو پشتر جبر راحتی اخوان رو به جل و برگه برهوان دفت بده
عجبا كوشو كونام كي بعدنا متدل كوليجي كان بدينا
بریا زنگا رومنی وکو خوزا بچیه بقرسه
gitmemiz gerekiyor. Sokaklar boşalıyor. Garip bir şeyler kaynıyor.
کام هر قص قاله ورق ماله باشه
So the film is called Heliopolis. It was shot in 2015. It's in both languages, Turkish and Kurdish. And when it's Kurdish, the subtitles are in Italic, and when it's not Kurdish, the subtitles are normal. And it was as much an experiment for me as a real shooting. It was really something that this moment that we lived, the five of us, it was really a moment that we shared. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Romain. So what interests me in what you say is because I'm a director of a museum of immigration, we receive many proposal artworks about this question of migration, borders, and everything. And one point is important for us is to know if it's a good work or a bad work. And of course, because we prefer good works. But how to choose, because you can have a good artist, bad artist, but the one element is the distance with the subject. Is it very literal, are very metaphorical? Is it something who's a personal experience? Is this a reflection? And when there is no rule, there is no good distance, but sometimes it's happen like in your movies. So thank you. And maybe Sveva, what do you think?
Yeah. So first of all, good morning. I'm very happy to be here, and thanks to Carolina to invited me, and to Liz from Galerie Satore Bonson, bien sûr. It was really like a pleasure. And I found Romain's work very interesting and very, very deep in the concept of borders, because he really like tries. I think like, you know, seeing some of your videos, you can really like find a fil rouge that connect all of them, because you're kind of like trying to build a new vocabulary, you know, a new Bible for these people, you know. So you have these words that recur all the time. So myth, the symbol of the radio itself, the land, which is always very big, green but lonely somehow, you know. So I found it very interesting. You can also like as well find your background in theology, you know, these things of the myth that nowadays you told me that is the radio, no? The contemporaneity of the myth now is the radio, no? And there is always. But I thought that it was not so negative, your kind of vision that you give it to us. Exactly, yeah, I mean like pessimistic or whatever, because there is always this voice from the radio, you know, that we don't see as the border. I mean, there are never, as you said before, we cannot really like see border physically, you know. It's something that can be like mental, can be political, but not actual, you know. You cannot touch a border physically. So there is always this voice in the radio that says, we have hope, you know, there is always hope, no? And they're finding this hope in the unknown, in something they do not see in reality. But then at the same time, they have this fear of loss, you know, so there are all of these controversial feelings, which I found it very interesting. There are like, of course, complex, no? But I've also like a question for you, because for me, as I collect, you know, kind of like, I don't really like the label of political art, not really, not that much, because it's something that, of course, it become a label. I don't want to give label to works of art, you know. So like social engaged practice and stuff like this. With socially engaged practice, as your practice is, I always have in my mind this question, also when I buy a work of art of this type. So who is taking benefit of your work?
I would say there is no benefit. I'm not sure there is a benefit. They didn't benefit. It's not true, because these four guys and many more, in fact, I helped them with their own films, because I stayed many months in Mardin, and I accompanied them in the making of their films too. It's theirs. So there was no benefit. There was an exchange.
An exchange, exactly.
Yes, there was a share, and for me that's more important.
Exactly.
But the share is also a good way not to lose oneself, but just to meet someone. I mean, the idea is not to melt into the other, but just to keep oneself and just to meet the other one. And I think that's what happened. I never stopped being the guy I am, the Occidental guy, and they never tried to be like me. I mean, we stayed what we were. There was no benefit, but there was an exchange, I would say.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And Sveva, would you talk about some of your pieces of your collection, for example?
Sure. So first of all, I would like to say that when Liz invited me firstly to talk about like borders, at the first glance, I thought on how to visualize borders, no? If we can talk about real borders, or we can talk about dream ones, virtual ones, and if the ones goes together, you know? So, I'm here as a collector, running a family collection based in Naples, and we started in the 70s thanks to the father of my husband. And I mean, firstly, we started to collect artists from the territory, you know. We didn't like go beyond the border of our safe zone somehow, you know, because it felt safe. And still now we really like love this part of the collection because it represents our past and our history, you know. But then when we started to collect now together as a couple, we decided to somehow to rewrite the geography of the artists we were collecting and to go much farther, you know, much beyond the borders of our territory. And I think this will of going beyond, it's really clear and evident in the video we have in our collection. So here you see a picture, a still from the video of Aslan Gazumov, People of the Consumants. This is an installation view at Void Gallery in Derry, Northern Ireland. And here you see this video talks about the deportation of more than a lot of Chechens 60 years ago from Soviet Union to Central Asia in 1944. And here they enter in this empty room, one by one, in their traditional way. So men first and women behind. And then on the back of this room, you see this poster of the city of Grozny, which is a very strange poster actually. And it remembers me a lot the place where Romain's video, Only Earth Drier and Drier, was shot, because this land is very big and it's kind of like a dreamy city, you know. It's not the real Grozny, because Grozny was destroyed by wars, and instead in this panorama you see this skyscraper that are like fake skyscraper. It's like the city how they would like that the city will be, you know. So there is always like this kind of hope again, you know, in a better future. But this this video was shown in an exhibition in Derry, so in Northern Ireland, in this exhibition called Open Ground in 2017, and I think it was a very interesting exhibition, and the place was a crucial place, because you know better than me that Northern Ireland has always been, territorially speaking, a place where the concept of borders were very problematic, you know. But not only in the past, but also now with the Brexit, you know, there is this re-emergence of the concept of hard borders between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So of course the group exhibition tried to put together artists that has this relationship with land and with territorial markings all the time, not only like because of their biography, but as well because of their lived experience. So we have also, like, I always think as well that it's not because you are born in Turkey that you can speak about the Turkish situation, you know. It's not that because you were born there you have the right to do it. It's also like your live experience, your travels, that gives you, you know, this kind of opportunity. So for me, this video was a key one to talk about. And I mean, there is always hope. You know, after 6 years, it's the first time they are together again in a public space, and these people are very important because they brings with themselves the narrative and the memory of their population, you know. So this one was very important for me also because it tells a lot how borders can be very, very violent. They bring death and wars, and they can be very, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, this is really like the most pessimistic explanation and manifestation of borders that we can have. But instead, I'm always quite optimistic, and I also think that art can create this kind of like alternative world, you know, alternative territory where we can really like rethink of our borders and our world, you know, but in reality, dreaming but created in the reality. So for me, it's the artists that most represent in our collection this forward thinking is Jonas Staal. So Jonas Staal is an artist from the Netherlands. is the founder of the New World Summit, which is a political and artistic organization that tries to gather together people and representative of political movement in stateless democracy. So we should also of course, the concept of borders goes together not only with geography, but maybe with geopolitical stuff, with geopolitical subject. So of course, maybe we should rethink our borders in the vision that maybe we can rethink of our borders in a stateless, in the absence of the state, if the state could not give us a true democracy. So what do these artists does? So we have, in our collection we have a maquette that represents the first New World Summit he did in 2012 in Berlin during the Berlinale by Zimieski. So it was a real, he built the architecture of a parliament, and it was really built in one of the theaters in Berlin. So this theater gathers together all the flags of all the political movements that were participating in that parliament at that time. And it was really an opportunity for them to share together their knowledge, their experience, and also some ideas about a possible future. Here, so you see that he has got, I'm also as a collector really interested in the process of the making of an artwork. So what he does from the beginning, he starts to design a maquette of the architecture that then he's going to build in reality. And then you have the evenemential, part of the work, which is actually the event is going to take place in reality in a theater, which is a very important place for the artist, because really the theater is the frame, of something that is a work of art in reality. So, and then he design and he create in reality this parliament, this place where people really can meet. This one is TransUnion. It's a project he's developing right now. This one was at the Warsaw Biennale, in this amazing Palace of Science and Culture that they have in Warsaw. And here you see there is kind of this neo-constructivist Russian architecture, as you can see in the tables, where these people were sitting and were talking about new models of union. We have to think about new models of union, and also new models of planetary egalitarianism. And they were doing it in a very special architecture, because of course we should think that architecture, the environment where we live in, influences us a lot. So for these artists to have control in the architecture is kind of the part of his work, because actually he's not intervening during the discussion, he's there in the architecture, with the architecture itself. And he did something very interesting as well right now, a few weeks ago in Palermo at the Teatro Garibaldi. This one, he designed again in this Trans-Europa Biennale Arcipelago del Mediterraneo. He designed as well all the space. You see there is kind of an alternative map of Europe with all of these new political movements that are, we can say they're considered terrorists in the place where they come from, because maybe they have a vision of democracy that is not shared by the people of the government of their places. And then I would like to speak about of course. So, of course, borders always had a negative meaning, and still now they force division, segregation, wars, and death. But the concept of borders, I think, comes together with the concept of control and surveillance, which is the last video I'm going to present you. This is Ahmet Togut. He's a Turkish artist that now lives in the Netherlands. He succeeded in having the visa to live there. He doesn't live anymore in Turkey because of very big problems. He could not live there anymore, being an artist and talking about very sensible subject over there, but not only. So this video is called Oscar William Sam. It's a video of 2012. And this was shot in the Zuccotti Park in Manhattan, where there was the base of the Occupy Wall Street movement. And the title is suggestive of the acronyms often used by the enforcement services and the military forces to identify and single out individuals. So in the video, a hand points out across the Zuccotti Park, trying to visualize someone, but you do not really know what is the goal and identity, you know, of the video itself, because of course somehow when you do this manifestation, you don't want to be recognized, of course, you know, you want to have your anonymity somehow, you know, you want to have your freedom of manifestating, you know, because, you know, if you are a free citizen, you should do it. I mean you should, no, it's not you should, you can, you should have the possibility, you know, to do it then at the end, of course. So Oscar William Sams alludes to the supposed anonymity of those involved in protest movements and the shifting terrain between power and impotence, perpetrator and victim. But at the end, if we try to think of borders as a possibility to go beyond them, to challenge our limit and to create new geography of inclusion, maybe we will not be afraid of them anymore. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Thanks.
Do you have some questions? No? Okay, thank you. Yeah, what's interesting is, so you talk about three works who are in the content, who are kind of in relationship with the contemporary world, but even to the way they are conceived for a style, for example, it's just not just a video, but everything who's around and to make people participating. So it's different.
Sure.
And so I will to make like the link, because in France we create, so many people here are from France, but anyway, we create, there was a museum about immigration who was created in 2007, and it was, so in this museum we have three collections. One is history, other is society, and the third is contemporary art. So we don't have these two videos, but the question was, in France in 2002, during the elections, the extreme right party Le Pen arrived in second turn, so the government feels that there was a strong xenophobic point in the French society, so they decide to make a more social link. And the most powerful way to people to represent that other people, for migrant people, are with them is a symbolical place. So they decide to create a museum. And the story of this museum is very, there's many different steps in this museum, because they decide after 2002, but after the next president, who was Nicolas Sarkozy, came, and he was not very for immigration. So they decide not to make the opening of the museum. So the museum was open, but the president didn't came to open it, as they usually have to do. And so the museum was not officially open until 2016. And 2016 there were new presidents, François Hollande, who finally make a official opening. So this is very, and the story of this museum, and there is almost only two famous, there's one famous immigration museum in the world, who's Ellis Island. And if you go in the United States, you have to go to Ellis Island, and there is like 15 million visitors a year, because it's part of the story of the United States, and immigration is part of the story of France too, because it's the most important immigration maybe since the 19th century in the world, with the United States. But French people doesn't feel they have a part of the story linked to immigration, and this is quite completely different. So we are here to make French people proud to be an immigration country, but we have a lot of job to do. So, and the thing is, we're in a building. This building is not very famous in France. I'm very surprised that there's not many people who went there. And usually, when tourists come to France or to Paris, they don't go there. But it's a marvelous palace. It was built during 1931, and it was built for the International Colonial Exhibition. So they wanted to show that colonization was great, not only in France but in all the world. And so they use 16 hectares of land at the door, at the entrance of Paris. So they have like 9 million visitors in like 6 months. So it was a very important event. But now colonization is not perceived like a good thing. So it's very strange because we are a building where you have to be proud of immigration, of colonization, and we are a museum of immigration. When you work on immigration, you understand that many immigration problems are linked to the colonization and the bad decolonization. So it's like a paradox, but we have a nice building at least. And so we made many exhibitions, and for example, we have two exhibitions a year almost. Now we have an exhibition now how music changed with the return of colonization. It makes reggae in London, and it changed the music in Paris during the 60s. And 3 years ago, we had an exhibition on the frontière. So it was why I was invited. I hope I can imagine. I was not here, but it was a good exhibition, and it makes some many important questions. So how can you talk about some political subject with art? Because if you are just on an artistic point of view, you miss many contents who are like data or history elements and geography elements. So you have to mix everything, and it's a very strange challenge to mix history elements, art elements, and society elements. And they usually, before, not now maybe, but they usually have for curator, historian or political people, so who are thinking in like in a book. And it was very strange because it's a hard job to make connection, people who are specialists of a subject like the border, and people who are making exhibition, who are much more visual people. And for example, the woman who curates this exhibition, called Catherine Vittel de Venden, who is very famous, at least in France, because she works a lot of migration, but she needs to put in space her topic. So for example, here we have a work of Barthélemy Togo at the first here, and a photo of different elements. Here we have a work of Emma Malig, and the thing is, when people visit this kind of exhibition, it's very funny because some people love contemporary art. For example, here we have a work of French artist called Emma Malig. It's 3 spheres who are together and they move, and it's like allegory of the problem of stability in the world. And so for people, this poetical approach is very important and makes them understanding how migration and border is very unstable questions. But for other people, they prefer documentary elements. For example, this picture is made by Gaël Turin, and it was a very important series on a wall who's between Bangladesh and India. And so it's more, you have more information in it, but you have less political elements. So but at the end, we have to catch both visitors. So by mixing different elements. So because we have not so much time, so we can mix a picture like on this one and when you present documentary works, or it's another question is this work a documentary picture or an artistic picture? And the price is not the same, and the perception is not the same. And it's very interesting to see where the limits are. And sometimes there are wonderful documentary photos who are made usually by journalists. And so it's and so many artists like Bruno Serralong are playing on this border of difference, or Luc Delay. And it's interesting to confront, to put together these two kinds of artworks. So, and in this exhibition we talk about all different kind of wall, some who are very recent, like in Israel, so some are much more old, like in Korea, and the one who are the most important for us today is the wall in Europe, because as you know, we have a crisis of immigration, and specifically maybe here in Barcelona, I think it's very, you are aware of this question, because now the most important illegal immigration is in Spain, not anymore in Italy, and so it changed. It make many change in the society and in the perception of people of the foreigners, and so it's hard for a government to decide how to handle with this illegal immigration, because you have always this two position. One is you say we have to be human, and the other one is to say if there is too much, it can break the stability of the country. So it depends of the government. Italy is very has a certain point of view, and France other. It change, and the question is very old. It's why we are a history museum of immigration, because we think that this question of actuality that you can see when you open your TV every night, it's not just a question of today. It's a very old question, and when you catch this question with history, you can have a more deeper reflection. And we have a very, it's very funny to present here, because we have an exhibition on Picasso, who, as you say, came in France, but as you maybe Spanish people know, but not French people, he never gets a French nationality. And it tells a lot about how you perceive foreigners. So Picasso came in Paris, and in 1940 he asked French nationality, and someone refused it. So, and he refused it for many elements. One element says, oh, this immigrant who's so famous and so wealthy, it's very strange. Maybe he's a spy or what else. And when he arrived, he came from Malaga, but he spent time with the anarchists of Catalonia. So they have notes on this anarchist, and they say he shared time with anarchists in 1910. So 30 years ago, when they open the file again, they say, so this guy is very dangerous. We don't have to give him the French nationality. And so Picasso built his own story in a way against France, or in a strange relationship with France. For example, all the people who make collection of Picasso were American, most American before French. The gallerists were German, like Ken Weller. And so it's a very strange way how country can recognize his own artist or not. So this exhibition will be in 2021, so I hope you will come. And so this is all these elements, and in this exhibition we try to present all question of wall. Now we think it's very important with the Trump wall between Mexico and United States, but since all the 20th century built some walls. And so in the museum we mix some documents, photo documents, some illustration who is not artworks but kind of, and it's very funny because for example, this photo was made by an artist called Thomas Mailander. Is about cathedral, Kars Cathedral. You know, when you're in Marseille, you see people from Algeria and Morocco who go back to their country. They carry all the things they can. So you have very funny cars with like a building on it, And Thomas Mailander make picture of this. But when visitor came, they don't know if it's true or if it's fake. Is it art or is it documentation? And it's in a way it's a good to make people to think about it. So, and this is Bruno Serralong. This picture is, he has now an exhibition in Pompidou Center, and because he says, I come after, he's considered as an artist, and he says, I'm not doing journalism, because I'm coming after journalists. I take picture when all the journalists left the place. So he doesn't look for the event, but more to show the situation of something who happens. And this exhibition, so this one is in Calais, who, as you know, is a border between England and France. And in the exhibition in Pompidou Center, they mixed two elements. One was quite interesting focus on the French press association called AFP, and how they do picture on Calais. And they explain what you have to do. You have to take a wide picture to know where we are, and after focus on something, and after in detail, and you can send it directly from your camera to the computer, and 2 minutes after, worldwide, the photo can be seen and published. And they compare with the work of Bruno Serralong, who think about the presentation and everything.
C'est fini le temps.
C'est fini le temps. So,
We have time for one question, if there is any in the audience. So if not, we've seen with this introduction, thank you to the three of you, how political concerns and social concern can be in the agenda of creative processes, artistic practices, and of course also the building of private and public collections. Holding all these reflections in mind, I invite you again to go see Romain's video at Gallery Sator. The fair opens at 4. And now we'll just take a break for lunch. If you're interested in the next talk, is at 3 with Tanya Barson, who's the curator of the MACBA, and Melanie Smith, who's also participating at the fair with Proyecto Paralelo. Thank you so much for being here.
Gracias.
thank you very much.